Oof.
I got a notification that it's now being streamed.
Wonderful. Oh, this is great.
I got it. Can I open it?
Oh, shit. Okay, there. Um, okay, so here's what I'll do. Oops, who's oh, Robert's in the waiting room. So I'll add that link to the important links document for the streaming.
Is it always the same link? Or do you, once you start live streaming, will you get a new link?
I have no idea.
Because I guess you will need to have a YouTube account, right?
Yeah. Well, do you need an account?
I have no idea. I'm not really using social media.
I mean,
Did you get the link once you started? Because
yeah,
I can't. Can you put it in the chat or
sure.
in the notes? It's also okay. Wait, I have the notes
Yeah,
open.
yeah.
Important notes. I can't see it. Oh, I'm not.
Oh, I didn't put it in the notes yet.
Ah, okay.
Okay, yeah, I dropped it in the chat, but I'll add it to the notes right now.
Yeah, it's your YouTube channel.
Okay, wonderful. Oh, I didn't put it in the notes yet.
Ah,
Oh,
okay.
okay, yeah. I had to mute it so that I wasn't hearing this call and the YouTube. Anyway. Okay, so Robert, this is our test. Are you able to unmute? Great. I'll make you a co-host.
Can you make me a co-host again as well?
Oh, I
Because I
can't.
think,
Oh,
am I co-host?
no. Now you are.
Ah, because when I made you host again, it didn't make me co-host. It made me just regular
Oh,
participant. Okay.
weird.
Yeah, that's a little bit weird. I would have thought that I at least would also be co-host, but I don't know. Okay, I will quickly have to go and stop the washing machine because otherwise it will be beeping every 5 minutes.
Good
Yeah,
luck with that.
be right back.
Can I test streaming, streaming the video, streaming the video?
Yes.
Okay,
I'm gonna
awesome.
also download the background.
And is my background is it like mirrored or is like the
It's
does it make
mirrored.
sense?
It's
That
mirrored.
makes sense. You can
Yes.
read it. Okay,
Yes.
coolio. Chatting. This is your hotel room, Michael.
Yeah, this is my hotel room.
Where are you again?
I'm in St. Louis
Oh, what? Cool. There's
for
like
a
really a
conference.
live stream coming here. It's crazy. Oh God, this is so ridiculous.
Well, wait, okay, so I told Johannes about this. So Rachel messaged me that apparently some high schoolers have registered and they can't legally get a Zoom license because they're under 18. So I changed the meeting settings to have it streamed on YouTube.
Wow, that's cool.
Is it?
Uh, where's the stupid VLC bike? I can't share. Okay, what? So I press share. Then I press advanced, right? And then video file? No. Couldn't I just share the VLC player?
What?
I want to share the VLC player, the video.
Yeah.
But I can't see, I can only share my screen, not the VLC. Do you know what I mean? Sorry.
Well, okay, so when I click share screen,
Ah, here it is.
okay.
Okay, so now I'm sharing directly the VLC.
Yeah, so what I would do is put this into full screen. Yeah,
Yes.
like that. Yeah.
Now it's full screen, but I still see everything for like the Zoom menus, the control panel, but you don't see it.
Right.
I didn't do anything like audio. Now let me test. I just play the video.
Just try it. No, you've got to do the audio because I can't hear it.
How do I do the
Okay.
audio?
So here,
Stop share.
stop share. Oh, this is slightly different. Oh, no. Okay. So when you do share screen
Yeah. Share sound.
and optimize for video clip.
Okay, let me try again. Okay, full screen is now. Okay, I will start.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ine van der Kelen. I'm a research expert at the University of Leuven and the Belgian Met Office. And today I will be giving the keynote talk.
So we do
global
see the
by
black
Water.
boxes above the video.
You saw that, but you heard the sound. Even when I muted myself, you still did hear the sound, right?
Yes.
Okay, let me.
Today at the Hacking Limnology session. And this is based on research that I conducted a few years ago during my PhD at the University of Brussels. And for this research, I had a lot of great collaborators, among which many people from the Izmir plague sector listed.
How was it?
It sounds great.
Okay, so even if I mute myself, you don't hear, and you can see the subtitles and everything. Okay, cool.
Yes.
If anything happens, please send me a text message or Slack me, right? And
yeah, we do. Yeah, and I think the biggest thing will just making sure that those boxes at the top are hidden.
yeah, but now it was hidden, right? You only saw the video.
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ine van der Kelen. I'm a research expert at the University of Leuven.
Love. Okay. Yeah. Okay, remember, share, and then share sound. Okay, cool. Optimize for video clip. Okay. Oh. Interesting. Cool. Wow. You're doing this again. Why?
Just remember, anything you say is live streamed over YouTube right now.
That's why you're so silent.
You're welcome.
Anything you say or do will be used in the court of your peers against you.
My God, we all look older.
Hey, speak for yourself.
I am.
So I have some slides at the beginning, so I guess I will need like maybe 5 minutes for like general introductions. That's okay, right?
Yeah.
And then I will just start with Inne, Van der Kelen, University of Leuven, and show the talk. This is like 12 minutes. Then we have like 15 minutes Q&A, so probably around 35, 40 after 4 p.m. Okay, perfect fit. And then at 5 p.m. we continue with the workshop.
Who is helper? Michael, you are right, and Carol. So you will be posting the links to the Q&A forms in the chat.
Yes, I can do that. Yes, I will do that. Oh my God. And this morning we got the last talk for DSOS, and she subtitled the talk for us.
Oh, nice.
So I'm like, oh
That's
my God,
amazing.
that's thoughtfulness above and beyond.
It's also really hard to do it for yourself.
Yes. Oops.
Ooh, that's cool.
I just saw that in one of the last meeting I've been to. Yeah, the rockets. I also want to do the rockets.
99 Luftballons am Horizont. That's amazing. Guess what I will be doing the whole time? Sending hearts in the Zoom chat. 2 hours straight. Do you all feel ready?
I mean, I don't have to do anything today, so I'm super ready. Where can you do those rockets? I also want to do rockets.
Is it in
Here's
the
just
apps?
reactions, and then I have like the normal reactions, and above them I have the rockets.
What?
I don't have that.
I don't have
You
that.
guys should update your software.
I
Nope.
guess I'm on Linux. I guess it's not their favorite operating system. I feel like always there were features that were missing on the Linux client.
Yep.
Sad.
That's your destiny. You chose this life. It's not like you could just install Windows.
No.
So 15 people are already in the waiting room. That's crazy. That's a lot.
That's pretty good. Okay, so it's me, Carol, attending. Okay. Yeah, okay, so Carol and I chatted briefly at the first like all hands thing. Like there was the big one that everybody joined, and then there was the one the week before that like Carol and Ching and Bobby made. Um, so she was saying that like it might be better to reduce the number of links in the chat. So do you have specific links in mind that we should share?
Yes.
Like the Q&A forms, I will definitely share.
I mean, I think the most important thing is the code of conduct at the beginning.
Yep. Yeah, I can do that.
People to remind them the Slack invitation.
Mhm. Yeah, I can do the Slack invitations too.
And the link to my personal.
Well, the
Venmo
Slack
account.
invitations are in the helpful links document.
Okay.
Think.
I have my PayPal information.
Do you really want that?
Isn't it like send me a cup of coffee? Like, you know, isn't there like these links? Like 50 cents. Jonathan is in the, okay. Did you add him?
Sure.
Just saw him in the chat.
Oh, Ching. Okay, you guys keep track of the chat. I'll keep pulling up these links.
Hey, John.
Hey.
Hey, Ching.
Hey, Ching. Hey, John.
Do we have to make you all co-host, right? Otherwise you can't.
Yes.
I think I can't do that.
Oh. Oh, maybe I'm the only one that can do that. Make co-host. John, you're now a co-host. Ching, you're now a co-host.
I can only
Rachel,
ask you to unmute, which I think is really funny. The only button I
like,
have.
Hello, hello. Everybody.
hello.
Hey.
Hey, hello.
Now you should be able to unmute. Well, yeah, Ching just unmuted. So
Oh, there's Inner also. Inner Wanderkehlen.
And Jorrit is also there. So. And Anna is also here.
is she? Oh,
I
yeah.
Uh,
I
yeah.
just admitted. Oh. Oh, no.
Hello.
Hey, Anna.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Is
Hello,
that
Ina.
background thing like showing up mirrored or reversed, or is it?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, okay. I didn't know if that was just me. I just need a mirror, unmirror something. Thanks.
No biggie.
And sorry, where do you found this nice virtual background we are using?
In the Slack, Robert posted it in the Slack. Are you in
In Slack.
in the
Okay. Yeah.
workshop channel? I guess some days ago, Robert posted two different versions, but I don't know what the difference is. He said different resolution, but they look basically the same.
Should we send a message to the people in chat, in the waiting room, I mean? Because there are
Yeah,
quite
that'd
some
be
people
great.
already. All right, I'll write something.
Thank you.
I'll just quickly check my microphone. Can you all hear me? Perfect. Thanks.
Yeah, and I guess before we open things up, Anna and Ina, will all the questions will come in to a Google form. And so what I'm going to do is I'll share with you the response document so you'll be able to see the questions as they come in. And I'll do the same for Daniel. And do we know if Don is joining? We'll keep an eye out.
Not sure.
Cool. Oh, and just a general note to the organizing team. So we had some folks who are are under the age of 18, so they could not get a Zoom license. So this is being streamed on YouTube. But mostly if you join these calls early, know that anything you say in this call prior to the call is being streamed over YouTube. Not that any of us would say anything incriminating, but
Yeah, but don't worry, our lawyers will check all material afterwards and send out a report to all of you, so don't panic. The legal team is on it. I added Carol to the
oh great.
room, but I can't make her
Yeah,
I
I'll
can't
make
give
her
her
co-host.
co-host. Okay, cool.
And by legal team, we mean ChatGPT.
Obviously. $50 people already, wow.
Very cool. Are we waiting really to the full hour before we let all in, or?
You're in charge, Robert.
No, I think I shouldn't be in charge. I have to talk first, or somebody else has to push the button. I don't want to have any responsibility for whatever happens next.
Okay, I'll close the waiting room at 1 minute.
Okay, should I start sharing my screen?
Sure.
Okay, can you all see this? Anything in the way, or is it okay?
Yeah, there are still
Well-
these boxes from Zoom, I guess. 2 gray boxes. Now
Are
only
the-
one left.
Okay. Now better?
There's still one
The
box.
small one is left.
Yeah, this one you're just hovering.
Yeah.
And now it's
Now
gone.
it's good.
Just switch one
And they're
slide.
back.
And yeah, I can't. How does it go away?
Learn the hotkeys, Robert.
And tell me the hotkeys. How about that?
I don't remember.
I can hide it. That's yeah. Like this is okay.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah.
Looking good.
Okay.
Now I can't mute myself. Oh. Now it's back. This is weird.
I think if you press escape, it will come back.
But I don't press anything and it still comes back.
Oh, wow.
It's not a huge problem. Just looks
And
mildly
if you
unprofessional.
can move it to the bottom where there's no text, then it's good.
How about this? I moved it to the second screen.
Great.
Perfect.
Okay, I'm gonna open or close the breakout room now, or you know what I mean.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Robert Ladwig. You see him, his pronouns, and on behalf of the organizing team, I'm really happy to welcome you all to this year's Hacking Limnology event. So this is our fourth joint virtual summit and workshop. And because today is the first day, I want to give you a general introduction. I see many new faces and names here, so just to give you a small insight into what we're doing here. This is like our annual virtual event, Hacking Limnology, and it's really the idea is that we really want to bring data-intensive research into the aquatic sciences, so hydrology, limnology, you name it, and really to talk about data science, machine learning, modeling, and remote sensing, and many other topics. So this is our sixth A1J workshop. What is A1J? I will talk about this in a second. This is our fourth virtual workshop. So we're doing this since 2021, and all materials also available online. This is our fifth summit, so since 2020. And right now, for this week, we have nearly 600 registrants. So we're really, really excited. And this is, of course, the first day. So thank you all for being here. First, let me remind you, we have a code of conduct here for this event, and here we are following or we are adopting the Carpentries Code of Conduct. You can read all the ideas or all the rules or all the code items online. In general, please be welcoming and use an inclusive language, be respectful, gracefully accept constructive criticism, focus on what is best for you and also the community, and also show respect. So this workshop series, so the first 3 days of this week's event are organized by the A1J group or community, which stands for the Aquatic Ecosystem Modeling Network Junior. And here A1J is a grassroots network of early career aquatic ecosystem modelers. So we had many annual workshops in the past, for example, 2018 in Australia, 2019 in Ireland. And right now we have about 220 global members. With A1J, we are heavily connected to the CLEAR network, which is the Global Lake Ecological Observatory Network. And since 2021, so now for the fourth year, we are organizing these virtual Hacking Limnology workshop parts together with DSOS. So the idea is here we really want to bridge the aquatic scientists into the 21st century. So now we have 3 days of workshop, each with a major theme, and we really want to give you hands-on coding exercises and insights into really, really cutting-edge research with some novel techniques to really help you to bridge from maybe a beginner or medium level to more like an expert level or a higher medium level, something like this. And for this, every day, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of this week, we have first introduction. These talks are pre-recorded and available online on our website. We also have a keynote talk by an expert in the field, which present to you some ideas or some research ideas that maybe you could use afterwards. And then we also have hands-on coding workshops about 1 to 2 hours at each day, where people will hands-on live code some ideas or some research with you together. And afterwards, at the end of each day, we also have a brainstorming session where you and your peers can discuss ideas. So here you can see this year's organization team from the Hacking Limnology workshop series, so A1J together with DSOS. And again, thanks to all of you. I really think we have a great program and a great workshop week ahead of us. Also, of course, a big thank you to all our workshop day leaders or our keynote talks, our introduction talks, and our workshop leaders. So we have 3 amazing days this week. Before we come to the program, before we start, I want to remind you that if you want to connect to the Hacking Limnology or to the A1J community, then please feel free to do so. We are always wanting to have involve more members to do data-intensive aquatic research. We have a Slack channel. We also have a GitHub page where you can find all our open access and open source software and material. And we also have a general email address. But these links will also be posted in the chat right now. And of course, we also have our website, which is updated every year. And here also you have the archive button, so you can also look at the material from the last years. So this week, from Monday to Wednesday, we have the workshops. Today, we will have the climate change day. So you will learn about especially how global warming will affect lake ecosystems. Tomorrow on Tuesday, we will talk about remote sensing using the SWOT satellite. And on Wednesday, we will talk about ecological modeling. And then Thursday and Friday, we have the DSOS Summit with amazing, really keynote talks also, and a panel discussion with experts about careers in data science. So today we have the climate change day. So today we online you can watch, or I hope you all watched it. Don Pearson gave a really amazing introduction talk into the EasyMap program, which is the intersectoral impact model in the comparison project. And he explained more or less the basics of this whole project, of this whole research theme. If you haven't watched the video yet, please do it in the break afterwards, or do it after the workshop today. It's a really good introduction into the whole topic about climate change modeling for lakes. Then now in a second, I will start live streaming the keynote talk today by Inne van der Keel from the University of Leuven about the global heat uptake by inland waters. And afterwards, after the live streaming, we'll have a Q&A session with Inne together. And then we will have a short break. And then at around 4 p.m. UTC, we will start with the workshop about accessing, analyzing EasyMap data together with Danielle, Anna, and me. And then afterwards, we will have some time for a brainstorming session where you can all come together to talk about ideas that you have, or questions also with the workshop leaders or the keynote speakers if you want to. Ideally, these brainstorming sessions at the end are really the heart of our AMON-Chain workshop. So the idea is really to connect to your peers and to find some really cool research ideas. And then hopefully you find other people who also think this is a cool idea. And then you can come together and maybe you can network, or you can also collaborate on these ideas together in the future. So just to visualize this, we will have the introduction, which is online. Now I will stream the keynote. We will have a live Q&A session. So you will see some really amazing talk or really amazing science, and you maybe get inspired to do something similar. Then we have the hands-on coding workshop where hopefully you can follow along how to do some research or how to do the data-intensive science. And at the end, we have the brainstorming session, which is open to everyone. Of course, it's an open-end creative space, and you can come together to find maybe a new research idea. And again, welcome to the first day of Hacking Limnology. I will now stop sharing for a second, and then I will start live streaming the keynote today. One second. I clicked the wrong button, I think. Yeah. Okay, stop share and
Hello, everyone. My name is Inne van der Keel. I'm a research expert at the University of Leuven and the Belgian Met Office. And today I will be giving the keynote talk on global heat uptake by inland waters, today at the Hacking Limnology session. And this is based on research that I conducted a few years ago during my PhD at the University of Brussels. And for this research, I had a lot of great collaborators, among which many people from the EasyMap Lake sector listed here below. The anthropogenic emission of greenhouse gases leads to trapping of energy within the Earth system. And this causes an energy imbalance and makes that the Earth system needs to take up excess heat. Now, the majority of this excess heat is actually taken up by the oceans, about 89% through warming and expansion of ocean water. Then there is the land surface itself that warms, so warming of the bedrocks, which accounts for about 6% of the observed heat gain. And then further smaller parts are melting of the ice caps, glaciers, and sea ice, which counts for about 4%, and then warming up the atmosphere, and evaporative processes in the atmosphere take up another 1%. However, in these previous assessments, it was not known what the share of inland waters is in this heat uptake. And that's, of course, a question that interests us as hydrologists, climate scientists, and lake scientists. This will be, of course, a small term, but it actually was never quantified before. So that's what we did in our study, which was published in Geophysical Research Letters in 2020. We provided the very first estimate of inland water heat uptake. And in this paper, we define inland waters as natural lakes, which cover about 1.8% of the global land surface. Reservoirs cover about 0.2% of the land surface. And then finally, we take rivers into account. Here we don't take into account heat uptake in wetlands and floodplains because there is limited data availability on the global scale. To calculate heat uptake, we need water temperature profiles, and we get this from global lake model simulations, and we use 12 in total. And these global lake simulations are all run using the same protocol within the intersectoral impact model intercomparison of, or ISIMIP. And we use models from the global lake sector from the 2B phase. And so we take these simulations from 1900 to 2020 using the historically driven and RCP 6.0 scenario for the last couple of years. And all these models are run at a half a degree resolution. And so in total, we have 12 simulations using 3 lake models. All these lake models are driven by 4 bias-corrected Earth system models from CIMIP 5. And if you're interested in more information on how this protocol works and how this ensemble of lake models work, I invite you to read the paper in Geophysical Model Development by Golub et al., where we describe the ISIMIP lake sector and the ISIMIP 2B and 3B simulations. Next to lake temperature profiles, we also need information on lake volumes. And so therefore, I use lake depth from the global lake database. And then on the other hand, we need lake occurrence, so lake area fraction per grid cell, per 0.5 degree grid cell. And for that, I use the hydro lakes data set. And then for reservoirs, we take into account another capability, which is the fact that reservoirs have been constructed over the 20th and 21st century with a large increase in reservoir capacity, especially during the 1960s and 70s. And so here we use data from the global reservoir and dam database, and we prescribe reservoir for every year. We calculate the annual heat content itself by multiplying the lake volume using the lake area from hydro lakes with the lake depth. And there we scale it with temperature for the different layers given by the different models. And then the heat uptake, we quantify that one by the heat content relative to 1900, 1929. And so apart from reservoir construction, we do not account for changes in lake storage in this approach. And for river heat content, we need to know how much water there is in the rivers and how warm that water is. And for that, we use simulations of the ISIMIP 2B global water sector. We use global hydrological models, which provide estimates on river storage. These are all also driven by the same 4 Earth system models as the lake models. So river temperatures, we derive that one from a regression-based approach based on the air temperatures, which we get from the Earth system models. And then the heat content of the river is again defined as the amount of water in the river per year, and then the river temperature based on this regression approach. If we then use these equations and all these information, we quantified how much heat has been taken up by natural lakes. And we get here an average heat uptake amounting up to 2.78 10 to the 20th of joules. Then for reservoir heat uptake, this is a lot smaller, a couple of an order of magnitude smaller. And we see a very strong increase, which is the combination of 2 things: warming of temperatures on the one hand, like for the natural lakes, and on the other hand, also the construction and the becoming available of reservoirs of more water in the reservoirs to heat. And then finally, the river heat uptake is characterized by a very large uncertainty. It's negative in the large years, but in the later years, which would point to declining river volumes, but there the uncertainties are rather large as the hydrological models showed large differences or large variations. And if we combine all these estimates together, we can see that in terms of inland water heat uptake, there is a total heat uptake of 2.57 10 to the 20th joules. And compared to other components of the Earth system, we see that it's very small, of course, compared to the oceans, only 0.08% and 3.6% of the land heat uptake. So actually they take up more heat compared to their occurrence over land. Then we looked at some regional case studies, which confirmed the global picture. We looked at some major lake regions and looked at their heat uptake. And so for the Laurentian Great Lakes, which cover a large share of the global lake volume, we see that they cover about 5% of the global heat uptake, while the African Great Lakes cover about 12%, but then 15% of global heat uptake. Of course, they have a big area to cover to warm, basically. And then we looked at the European Great Lakes, which is a bit smaller, and then the Amazon River, which also accounts for quite a large share of global inland water heat uptake. But again, here uncertainties are rather large and there's no real trend visible. Then we looked at another component in this heat story, which is the fact that reservoir expansion actually redistributes heat. The heat that is the energy basically that is carried within the water that is then extra stored on land by filling up the reservoirs and redistributing water from the ocean to the land through the filling up of these reservoirs. And if we can quantify this component, and if we compare it to the heat uptake due to warming temperatures and climate change, we can see that it's about 10 times as large, and it follows clearly the increase in reservoir capacity. So this basically increases the potential of storing extra heat on land by having more water on land. Now our estimates went into a continental heat storage inventory where different contributions of heat uptake from the ground, inland water, and permafrost thawing were combined using a very interdisciplinary team of scientists. And for this paper, we extended our analysis to 2021. We added an extra global lake model, and we also improved the representation on how lake volume was represented. As we assumed a cylindrical representation of lake volume, we improved this to following a truncated cone. And so this led to an updated inland water heat uptake estimate, which was a bit lower, mainly due to this volume refinement of the lake temperatures. And so this made it into that paper together with also estimates on ground heat uptake and permafrost thawing. And then these different components could be compared. And there we saw that the inland waters here shown by the middle column is actually quite a low share of heat uptake, nevertheless rather important. And then this continental heat uptake inventory also made it into a bigger Earth global heat inventory. And this paper actually summarizes all the latest science on heat uptake and energy Earth imbalance as shown by this figure for the different components. Furthermore, the paper also, our estimates also made it into the IPCC report as shown here in working group 1. So to conclude, we provided the first estimate of inland water heat uptake and thereby made a contribution to the global heat inventory. And the approach of the ISIMIP project, which is intersectoral, really allowed to integrate our lake models, hydrological models, and Earth system models in the calculation and provide ensemble model simulations to provide a first estimate with an uncertainty range. And we found that inland water heat uptake is relatively small, but important for various environmental processes with important societal implications. For example, temperatures will increase by the end of the century. And this has, of course, important consequences for different societal issues like a decrease of ice cover and increase of lake certification, also changes in the water carbon cycle, ecosystem productivity, a decline in lake water quality, an increase in lake algae blooms. with then effects on fishing and food security and potentially recreational activities. So nevertheless, a very important aspect to consider in climate change studies. And with this, I would like to thank you for your attention. I will be online for more questions on this. And if you're interested in the ISIMIP approach and our studies and follow-up articles, yeah, you can check out the papers on this slide. Thanks a lot, and I'm looking forward to your questions.
Okay, thank you, Inne. This was fantastic. This was the keynote from our first talk about global warming climate change. We have now about 15 minutes for a Q&A session. And I want to remind you can still use the link to the Q&A form in the chat, or also if you really want and you don't want to press the link, just use the chat right now and ask Inne any questions. Okay. Again, thank you for the talk and thank you for being here. Let me just go through like the first questions we got in the Q&A form. So the first one is more about the method side. And it's about, did you estimate the error on just using lake depth and area instead of the hypsography when estimating the lake volume?
Yeah, thanks for that question, and thanks for having me also here. It's yeah, quite confronting to see a recording of yourself live. But anyway, very good question. In the first study, the 2020 study, we didn't calculate these uncertainties, but later on in the refinements, we did look at the lake hypsometry. Unfortunately, taking lake hypsometric curves for any lake worldwide is not possible currently due to availability of data. But in the meantime, a lot of great global lake products became available, like the Globathy product, for example, on lake bathymetry. And so this allows to refine these estimates. But we went on refining our initial approach, which we took as a lake as a cylinder, basically with using mean depth. So we refined that using a truncated cone. So it's not the exact hypsometry, but still it assumes the cake, the lake as a inversed wedding cake, basically, with larger, yeah, with the depths, the different depths and with the different temperatures for different lake layers, taking into account the different volumes of the lake depths, assuming a cone-like structure, which is still a parameterization and but yet refined compared to the previous estimates. And there we did some sensitivity studies, and there is some uncertainty related to that for sure. But I'm pretty sure with new products becoming available, this estimate will be able, we will be able to refine this estimate even further. And it's because it's basically lake volumes we try to estimate here. Yeah.
That's exciting. So do you think the error or like the budget will increase or get lower, like the real heat uptake, if you really go finer and finer on these spatial scales?
It depends, of course, because you have your larger volumes than maybe on the surface layers, which are more easy to warm. So in that respect, you would expect that lake heat uptake might increase. But yeah, that's to be seen, right?
Yeah, that's exciting. Okay, the next question is, and I also thought this was really interesting to see, like these dynamic heat uptake by the rivers worldwide. So what do you think, or what do you know what the possible reasons are for this decrease in the heat uptake by rivers?
Well, there we actually, it's a very interesting result, and it needs to be highlighted first that it's characterized by very large uncertainties. So there we saw that river temperatures were actually increasing. And I don't know whether I can share my screen because I have some additional slides maybe, which I can show to, no, I don't think I can. Anyway, so we saw that river temperatures are increasing following the increase in air temperatures. But there we saw that the river volumes, the water contained in the rivers, there we saw very large uncertainties with very large differences between the different Earth system models. So we had 2 global hydrological models, each driven by 4 Earth system models. And so this decrease we see in the global heat uptake comes from a decrease in river volume, but characterized by very large uncertainties. So yeah, I would not say it's really decrease in river heat uptake. I think these estimates are to be refined. with more accurate information on river storage modeling, basically.
Okay, thanks. I think you should be able to share your slides if you want to show something for this. Is it working for you?
Yes, I think it is.
Awesome. Yeah, awesome.
Yes, yes. So this is showing this what I was saying. So the first row is the increase in river heat temperature for the different Earth system models, showing by the different columns. And then below you see the different river storage evolution for the two global hydrological models. And there you can see that the differences are very large, and there is a very large interannual variability, especially here for the GFDL-driven simulations, both in both global hydrological models, water gap and Matsiro.
Okay, thanks. Okay, then the next question is more about the lakes again. And the question is, have you looked at the vertical distribution of heat uptake in future scenarios, and what is the role of stratification in the lake heat uptake?
Yeah, that's also a very interesting question and would be a very good follow-up study, because we did look into the future because we wanted to explain or quantify the role of heat that has already been uptaken. But using the EasyMeep data, this becomes very well possible to look into future and also looking into the role of stratification. Depending on future stratification changes, we can of course expect changes in heat uptake by allowing, for example, if there is an increase in stratification and less mixing, maybe the potential to take up heat reduces, or the surface waters warm even more. So these would be very interesting questions to look into with EasyMeep data also for the future, definitely.
And with these future lookouts, or do you also think then you have like future scenarios of how like reservoirs will be built worldwide and how they could affect that?
That's a very good question again, and it's part of ongoing analysis in the EasyMeep 2B simulations, which are based on the CMeep 5. Future reservoir construction and changing socioeconomic conditions in the sense of the lake waters themselves are not taken into account, although in some scenarios there are changing land use and population and GDP increases taken into account in the scenarios. But the new generation of EasyMeep models, which is currently being run as we speak, I think it's called the 3B simulations. They have scenarios with accounting for future reservoirs and other socioeconomic changes also into the future. So that will be very interesting to see what comes out of these simulations in terms of these elements. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. Okay, the next question goes back to your last slide, I think, about like these outlooks or like these ecological consequences. So what are like the big consequence for the ecosystem from this heat uptake? I think you showed like the ice period will get lower or will be reduced. Can you talk about this?
Yeah, I'm not an ecosystem scientist. I'm really a climate scientist, actually. So I might not be the best person to answer this question. I'm pretty sure there are way better people suited for that in the room. But I think, yeah, this might. I mean, the increase in heat uptake is a consequence, or is directly linked with the increase in lake water temperatures, and that of course starts up a lot of processes which have to do with ecosystem productivity and organism habitats, with oxygen content into the lakes, the water carbon cycle, and so on. And these can have very important effects on the lake ecosystems, and therefore also the services they provide. For example, algae blooms might be one example, or decreasing water quality. So there might be different elements related to that.
Okay, thanks. Then the next question goes a bit away from lakes, and it's more about for like this global heat storage. Are there any quantifications also for groundwater, or has it been insulated from warming by its depth below the Earth's surface?
That's also a very interesting question. And currently there is no quantification for groundwater. I don't even think there are global inventories or the amount of groundwater on worldwide, let alone temperatures of groundwater. So that would be a very challenging effect. I know that the global hydrological community is really moving towards modeling groundwater and including it, for example, in Earth system models, because it's an important component there too. But estimating this is, I think, really next level. And I would wonder whether it would be big. I guess so. But then we would need to know the temperatures and to what extent this water is actually able to warm due to global warming. Because the ground heat estimates, which I showed in the presentation, these are really based on bedrock, on how much a bedrock warms based on borehole and simulations. But it would be an interesting component, also part of inland waters, of course. Yes, but I expect it to be rather small.
Yeah. But there are like no estimates right now. It's just mostly
No.
ignored.
No,
Okay.
no, not at all, no.
Okay, then the next question would be about, you talked about the important role of the very large lakes in the heat uptake. But what about like many small lakes? Are they combined important as well?
It's all about the lake volume, right? I mean, you can take up as much heat as you have volume to warm up the water, right? So yeah, if they have a very large volume, they have a large and a large surface area in contact with the atmosphere, they have a large capacity to take up heat. But we really see that it's really like in the total heat uptake, it's really these big lakes that take up most because they simply have the largest volume of water.
Okay, so like Minnesota with like 10,000 lakes wouldn't be as important as the Great Lakes, right? In this case.
It's all about the lake volumes then,
Okay.
yeah.
And does it also explain like these African Great Lakes? Because I guess they have the highest volume and that's why that's like these 15%, right, of the global uptake?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, exactly. And there we see that for all African Great Lakes, Lake Tanganyika is the largest uptaker, so to say. That's really because of its volume. That's really showing the lake volume, which is warming. Yeah.
So in this case, like the future scenarios, and maybe we can expect more like arid conditions, more droughts, and also, of course, if we reduce the volumes, right, it would also lower potential future heat uptakes, right? So if we
Because
have
you would
less,
reduce your. Mhm. Yeah, potentially. I guess that depends for the region you're looking at. To my knowledge, there are no, or it's also really part of active research on how lake volumes will change towards the future, and that's something also important to account here for. Lake dynamic, like water balance, lake dynamics are not taken into account in this study. But yeah, we might see changes, but then I think the main volume will, like the variations on the major volume will be rather small, I suspect. But of course, regionally, it can be very important. We can see very important changes, definitely.
okay, thanks. Then we got two new questions in the meantime. One was already answered about like the ecology at the beginning, but again, do you know the impact of heat uptake on aquatic organisms, especially on the global scale?
Yes, very good question. But I'm afraid I'm again not the aquatic ecology expert to answer that question. But I can expect that these impacts are rather large. This increasing in temperature will cause shifts in lake habitats for species. Definitely, I expect these impacts will be rather large. And maybe here to add on the future scenarios, we also have a paper using the ISIMIP-2B simulations which attribute actually increases in lake temperature to anthropogenic climate change. It's also in the last slide, the references of the last slide. So and also project them into the future, and not only like increases in lake temperature, but also decreases in ice cover and duration of ice cover, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Then there's one more question. So it's about like the geometry, I guess. And what about the effect of surface area to volume ratio on the heat uptake contribution?
Yeah, again, a very good question, and we try to take that into account by using this reversed wedding cake, thereby accounting for the volume or the differences in volume of the surface layer versus the deeper lake layers. But additional analysis would be required to really disentangle that relationship for heat uptake.
I really love this mental picture about like lakes as like wedding cakes. I think I will always also use this now in my thinking about lake ecosystems. Yeah, I think we have gone through all the questions. I think this was a really amazing keynote. Thank you again, Inne, for kickstarting hacking knowledge in this year and for introducing us to heat uptake on the global scale with EasyMIP.
Yeah, thanks a lot for everyone listening in. It was a pleasure.
And if you have more questions, I guess people are free to contact you through email, which is in your slides, in your presentation, which is online. So if you missed the talk by any chance, then please go to the homepage and watch it.
Okay, thank you.
Again, thank you so much. And we will now do a small break, about 25 minutes until like the start of the hour. So 5 p.m. European Central Time, or I think 3 p.m. UTC. And then we'll continue with a hands-on coding workshop for how to access and manipulate data for EasyMIP. This coding workshop will be in the R scripting language. So if you want to join along, then please go to the website. The link will also be posted here in the Zoom. And there you will find the instructions, what you should install, what you should download to follow along for the workshop. Of course, also feel free just to do some backseat watching, just be here, watch the hands-on coding, and maybe if you want, you can follow along also later. Okay, so now we will do a break of about 20 minutes, and then we will continue with the workshop at the start of the hour. And again, thanks to Don and Inne for these first two amazing presentations. Again, if you missed Don's introduction slides or video, it's also online on the workshop homepage. Okay, see you all in 20 minutes. Okay, welcome back everyone to the first day of Hacking Limnology 2024. Today is our first workshop day about climate change through EasyMap, the intersectoral impact model intercomparison project. If you haven't done it yet, please go to our website and download or watch later the amazing introduction talk by Don Pearson and also our amazing keynote by Inne Vanderkillen. And we just had a really fantastic Q&A session. We will now continue with the hands-on coding workshop. Again, I want to remind you, if you haven't done so far, go to the website. There are all the instructions to follow along. You can download all the scripts and all the data and the material to also do the same data science afterwards to really investigate how climate change will affect lake systems locally and globally. The EasyMap workshop, which we will start in a second, is led by Danielle Mercado-Bettin from the Center of Advanced Studies of Planet and Anna Ayala Zamora from Uppsala University, and also by myself, Robert from Aarhus University. And this workshop will be about accessing and analyzing EasyMap data. And also, if you have any questions during the workshop, there is the Q&A form in the chat. And you can also just use the chat to ask questions, and hopefully also people here who have these backgrounds, like Here to Help, will reply and will try to help you, or also the workshop leaders will maybe do some breakout rooms to really address your issues. And with this, we will now start recording the workshop. So hopefully you all give permission for that. I don't know if I have to press the recording button or not. I don't have to do that. Somebody did in the background. This is really science. This is amazing. This is fantastic. This is magic. And we will now start the hands-on coding workshop about EasyMap and climate change.
Robert? Hi, Robert. It's Anna, right?
Yeah, Anna will start now with the recap, and then we will start with our workshop. But just to talk a bit before we really start, we have like 3 parts. We will first have 4 parts. First, a small recap. Then we will talk about global lakes, how to access the data, local lakes, how to manipulate data. And at the end, we will talk about how to connect the lake sector to all the cool science sectors beyond only lakes. And without further ado, Anna, the space is yours.
Thank you. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So before starting the code, recap from Don Pearson talk. In the EasyMap lake sector, there are 2 domains, local and global, and lakes in the local domain have sufficient information to allow the lake model to be parameterized using individual lake bathymetry and to be calibrated against major water temperature profiles. For EasyMap 3, bathymetry, historical water temperature observation, and water transparency are available for 74 lakes around the world, 33 of them located in Europe, 29 in North America, 5 in Oceania, 5 in Asia, and 2 in Africa. This information is available in the GitLab repository that you can find the link in the bottom right corner. So lake model simulation for EasyMap 3B, that is how lake respond to simulated historical and projected future scenarios are available for those 74 lakes, forgotten, system, GLN, and Flake, calibrated and run using our lake ensemble, and for 5 different GCN and for P control and historical scenario, and SSP 12.6, SSP 370, and SSP 585. So model output can be found in the EasyMap repository, so the link also can be found in the bottom right corner. If you also wish to perform future water quality simulation, observation of nutrients, chlorophyll, and oxygen are available for 10 local lakes. Not everything is available for all lakes. For some lakes, there is only oxygen, for other nutrients and chlorophyll, and for other all are available. And these data are provided upon request. So moving to lake simulation in the global domain. In the global simulation of EasyMap 3, a representative lake is used in each 0.0 degree by 0.8 degree distance. Each representative lake is a real lake. This lake was selected from hydrolake database, which include around 1.4 million lakes with a lake surface area of over 10 hectares. The selected lake for each 0.5 by 0.5 grid is laid where the depth corresponding to the depth weighted median weighted by surface area for all the lake contained in each 0.5 grid cell. So there is a total of 41,449 representative lakes. For the morphology of each representative lake, we include the isograph cube, which consists of 11 data per relative level, depth, area, and volume, and they were taken from global basin. The selected representative lakes and the lake bathymetry can be found in the GitLab repository that you can find in the link in the bottom right corner of this slide. And the global lake model simulation for ECME 3A are currently available for GOTEN and can be found in the ECME repository. And all the necessary material for today's workshop can be found in the GitLab repository, so you can go there and get the code and the data. And for the section C, so data should be downloaded from the Google Drive or with transfer, and the links are provided in the README file in the data folder of the section C. And then I think Robert would be, or Daniel would be continuous.
Many thanks, Anna, for the introduction. So as Anna was saying, now you have the GitHub repository in the chat. If you click on the GitHub repository, you will find 3 folders. So I will follow the folder A, so it's the first one. So I will share my screen and I will guide you through the code. So the idea of this code is mainly show you a way of visualizing the data that is available in ECMIP. Also, let's say a basic analysis of how you can start using this data. For this, we will need these 2 libraries, Terra and ggplot2. So if you don't have them, you will have to install them before. We will use netcdf data files. I'm not sure if you are familiar with the format, but this is a quite common format for climate data, for instance. So here, with this data, you are allowed to have many different variables with many different dimensions. So this allows you to save data in a very efficient way. So if you want to know more information, you can find it easily in Google. So now let's go to the code. You have to be sure to be in the directory where you have the data. The data is already there in the GitHub, so you don't need to go to the ECME portal to download it for this example. You just clone the repository and you will have the data immediately. Is in the input. I mean, you will find an input folder and an output folder. So in the input folder, you will find all the data you need for this example. And if you want to, let's say, analyze this information in a different region or in a different specific point in the world, then you can go to the ECME portal and download all the data you need. Then let's start with the global simulation. As Anna was explaining, in ECME, you have 2 branches. So we have the global simulations, which are based on these 41,000 lakes around the world. And then you have these 73 local lakes. The main difference between these 2 simulations are that the 73 local lakes are calibrated lakes, calibrated simulation, while the global simulation are not calibrated. So I will first show or visualize the first part, which is the global branch. For this case, we are going to explore a historical scenario for the time range between 1991 to 2000 for the region of Africa. I mean, I could use, in this case, any other region in the world. I just selected this one. And you will find it also in the same folder. I mentioned it before in the input folder. So I will just click on Rust and start loading the file. Also, for this type of file, you will see that they are very informative. And in the name of the file, you will see that you have the name of the lake model, which in this case is Gotham. You have the climate model that was used as forcing in the local lake, which in this case is GFDL. You have the historical scenario. You have the bias correction that was applied to the data, and many other information. I mean, you can find all this information in the EasyMeet portal if you want more details. So let's have a look at the files. If you print the NC file, you will see that you can find the dimensions, the resolution, the extent, the reference coordinates, also the units of the variable. You can also get the coordinates if you want, but I don't recommend you to do it because it will take you a lot of time because there are many points in the file. Then you can also get the time, the whole time. Remember that we are using only 1 decade, but you could do this for, I don't know, hundreds of years or so on, or any other time you need. Let's set a format for the time. You can also print the extension of the file. And finally, let's do our first plot. For this first plot, remember that we have 1 decade, but I want to plot only 1 day. In this case, I mean, we will do it for the 150. I mean, you could use any other day between 1 and 3,600. So if you go and click on length of the time, let's say, you will find the whole length, which is 3,600. So we will pick up this 150 day just for plotting. Here we select this day. Here we are doing a conversion from Kelvin because the original files are all on Kelvin. And we convert them to degrees Celsius. And then let's do our first plot. Also, in the GitHub repository, in the output folder, you will find all the results that are coming from this code. So in case you are not able to do it at the moment because you don't have the libraries or because of any other reason, you could then access anyway to the output. So let's do it. So you have here, you can see here the plot of Africa. I mean, this is surface temperature, lake surface temperature for Africa. Here you can see the different latitudes and so on. So this is remembered only for the day 150, just to do a first plot. Then, for instance, let's say if you want to calculate what we call in climate science climatology. So this means the average, the mean across the time dimension. You could use it by using this function, which is called like apply. This function, which is mean for this case. And then let's again convert the data to degrees Celsius, and then let's plot. And then you will get the map here for the mean surface temperature across the decade that we are analyzing in this example. Also, since we have time, well, this is optional, but I think we'll have time. You could also create an animation for different dates or months or whatever other time resolution you want. This is quite common also in climate science. So for this, this is not mandatory, but you need to have these libraries. So let's do an animation for the first 30 days. So here I'm doing the same. I will just run because it's doing the same, and then I will stop a bit so that you have time to do it for yourself. Here I'm just plotting the same, and here with this animate function, you will see that it takes a bit of time depending on your personal computer, but you will see here that you have the animations for 30 days. So you see here that it's changing. I mean, it's changing, especially in the south. You can see it clearly. And also here in the middle. So remember that you can do this for any other time scale that you want to or you need to do it. And then you could also save this output as a GIF, which will save the animation you need. So I will give you 1 or 2 minutes just to, if you are stuck at some point. Yeah, I will give you 2 minutes until 17, and we will continue with the next part. Or if you have questions, I'm also here to help you if you need it. Robert, the questions are, I mean, the people is able to ask here, or do they need to write in the also in the document?
So we can do both. We can use the Q&A form, the link is in the chat, or just use the chat right now to ask questions.
Okay. Okay.
Right now there's nothing in the chat.
Okay,
Let
so
me
if I
check
don't see any in the chat, I can continue then. Okay, perfect.
Let me check the Q&A.
Okay. Then remember that if you have questions, it's because I don't know if I'm going too fast or not. So if I don't see a question, I will understand that you are keeping the speed that I'm having. Okay, so until this part here, we just have visualized, let's say, a basic with basic plots, what we can do with global simulations. Remember that here, for this example, I'm using only surface temperature because we need to do it, let's say, in few minutes, but you could also do it for water temperature profiles or for any other variable that you could need. So now let's go for the other branch. So let's select one point from the whole global data set. But before that, I give you a big warning. So this is not the usual way of viewing global data, global simulation. Usually when you take global simulation, you want to analyze the whole pattern of a region or for the whole globe. So for this case, we will select only one point. In this case, we will select the lake Q from the global lake simulations. So for lake Q, this is the coordinate. So let's set the coordinate, latitude and longitude. And let's plot this point with the map. You will see it here. This is the location of lake Q. Let's say more or less in the middle of Africa. And then let's extract the data, the temperature data, only for that point. That's what I'm doing here in these two lines. And also, I mean, this line is to extract the data, and this one is for doing the conversion. And then let's do the plot. And here you will see the time series of surface temperature for Lake Q using the global simulation. So now let's open the local lakes to compare global simulation with local lakes, which means calibrated lake simulations. Remember that global lakes are not calibrated and local lakes are calibrated. And let's compare both. Okay, so here we have global simulation, they are uncalibrated. Then now let's open. You can also find this file in the input folder on the GitHub. So this is the Gotan simulation, Gotan layer simulations. I mean the same model but only for Lake Q. We will in this case use the whole historical period from 1850 to 2014. So let's open the file. You can print also the information for this file. You can have the time. So it's the same function that we are using above. Then here I'm just selecting the decade, the exact decade we are using for the global simulation so that the time series match. Then here we are finally doing the same conversion from Kelvin to degrees. So if you receive a warning, don't worry about it because this is related to the netcdf format because it's only one single point. And usually netcdf is used for many points, but in this case, it's only for Lake Q. Okay, let's keep going. And then let's plot the local and global. Here you could find, you will see the Lake Hue result for surface temperatures using local calibrated simulation. So the blue one, remember, is the global, I mean the surface temperature for Lake Hue from global simulations, and the black line is using local calibrated simulation. So you could see that clearly there is a bias in the global simulation, but this is quite common when using uncalibrated global simulations. Now let's go to the last part of this code, and in this last part, I'm just showing a basic climate change analysis. So usually
Danielle,
when you are yes
sorry,
yes
do you want to do a quick poll how people come along?
yes sure.
Okay, Michael, can you just submit the poll and we can just see if people can follow along the pace or if we should like slow down or have some time for questions. I think this is super cool, and I think you should all like print out some really cool images and put them on your fridges about like global
Yes.
surface temperature change, because this looks amazing and the animation is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, happy to answer any question you can have.
Okay, so 60% of people did answer the poll for the pace. And about 66% think it's just right, and about 31% say it's a bit too fast.
Okay.
Remember, if you have any questions, please feel free to use the Q&A form or the chat. I will check the Q&A. So far, there's nothing in the online form. Also in the chat, there's nothing right now. So I guess, yeah,
Okay.
we can
Also,
maybe.
if they have questions, they could also write us an email or something. I mean, we are always available also. And also, if you need to download any data, I mean, regional data, global data, or local data for other part of the world, remember you got also access to the ECME portal. And if you have any problem, you could also contact us, and we could also help you. And also with the code in case you find any problem. So yeah, I'm waiting for the chat in the chat. If you have questions, in the meantime, I will continue. So the last part of the code is just to show you a basic way of doing a climate change analysis. So usually when you take climate change information, for instance, using ECMIP, you always show a historical period. You could show also a P control, which is removing human intervention. And finally, you show this future pattern, future ranges between the different scenarios from the worst to the best scenario possible. Here in this case, which I mean, we will check some files from the ECME portal as well. Here you have, for the same Lake Kivu, you have the historical scenario, you have the SSP126, and which is the best scenario possible in the future. Then you have one in the middle, and the worst case scenario, which is the SSP 5.5. So here I'm just listing the files, and in these functions, I will just load the files, all these files. I will take the time of those files, I mean the decade for all the decades in the files. Then I will do a conversion, and finally I will create a data frame that will allow me to then do up the plot. Okay, so this is a simple function. Then I will load the information. This maybe could take a bit of time for you, but it would take like, I don't know, 5 or 10 seconds for each data frame. So let's wait a bit.
Do you want to? So now we got some questions in the Q&A. Do you want
Yes.
to reply them now, or is all good time?
No, it's fine. Yes, we can do it now. Yes.
Okay, the first question is, could you introduce a little more details on the differences between calibrated ones and uncalibrated ones, such
Yes,
as
sure.
what data did you use for the calibration?
Yes, sure. So, ECMIP, simulations are always based on a protocol. So all the modelers that want to run inside of Ismit, we follow a protocol. This protocol is built according to the last available data that are in literature or in databases. So for the global simulations, I mean, we don't have data for all the lakes in the world. And also, this doesn't allow us at the moment to calibrate each individual lake in the world so that we can have, calibrated simulations. So what we decide is to, usually the model, what they do is take the default parameters in the calibration for every lake model and apply these default parameters for all the lakes in the world. Another option that we do, for instance, for Gotham model is that we take the parameters that are, the final parameters that are the result from the local lakes. I will explain now local lakes, but we take the parameter from local lakes, we calculate a mean average, and then we use this parameter for all the lakes in the world. I know this is not the real parameter for all the lakes. That's true. You can see here that we have a bias. I mean, I'm showing the bias to you, but this allows us to see a global or regional pattern of what can happen on the lakes in the future in this case. Local lakes, in the other way, is our, let's say, validation sample. So we did a data call a few months ago, more or less 1 year ago, asking for people that would like to contribute. So the people send hypsography data, they send water temperature data, and also water quality data, as Anna showed in the first slides. And with this data, we provide all this data to the modelers that want to calibrate and simulate local lakes. I think Jordi is around here, so if you have questions with local lakes, we could also ask him. And with local lakes, the idea is that every lake is calibrated as you do in any other lake simulation, and then all the scenarios, once all those lakes are calibrated, are run with these parameters already calibrated. So this is the main difference of the two branches of the lake sector. So I think the files are now done. So let's combine them. You have another question, Robert?
First, thank you. That's one question. Maybe if you just have an idea, somebody asked it on their end, the figures don't plot and they also don't receive any error or warning.
Say again.
Some people didn't get any figures and also didn't get any error. I think this seems really specific. And maybe it's because, as Johannes said in the chat, it's because it's directly plotted to PDF, right?
It could be, yes. If you want, because if they click on PDF and then ggplot and don't click on that off, then they won't get the plot. Yeah, I mean, if you have problem, maybe it's because of that. If you have problem to plot in RStudio, just don't use PDF. I mean, this PDF is just to save it on your personal computer. But if you want to just plot the image, the figure, just click on ggplot and you will get the plot immediately. I mean, don't use PDF. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I should have mentioned this. Sorry. And then finally, then you have the basic analysis. Let's say this is it's quite ugly, I have to say, because I didn't look for nice colors and so on. But I mean, it's a start for you. You could see here that you have the historical scenario, the historical surface temperature for Lake Kivu. You have the SSP, the best, the medium, and the worst scenario for future projections. Yeah, this is something that you can start using for your analysis. Yeah, that's it for the code. And if you have questions, I'm happy to answer, or you could also write me an email. Thank you, Johannes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Danielle. If you have any questions, now is the perfect time to use the chat or the QA form and ask them. So just as a reminder, the idea is that now in this workshop, we want to talk about how you can actually access and use the EasyMap data for your own research ideas. Danielle, can you put your email in the chat again, please?
Yes, I will. Can I send to the whole group? Yes. Yes, yes.
Okay, so in this workshop, we have the three parts. This was part A, right? So how to access the global data, how to compare it to the local data also. Now in the next part, we will go more onto the local side. And I have to apologize because I do the second part and my script isn't as nice as Danielle. So please bear with me. So the plots won't be as beautiful. And at the end, we will have Anna's part about how to connect the lake sector or the lake eating sector outside to other scientific sectors. Okay, are there any more questions for Danielle? I think otherwise we can just probably continue, or is there like a need for a break right now? I'm looking into many faces that don't tell me anything. Okay, no need. Oh, there's a question. Oh, there's a long question, I think. Danielle, are you still here?
Yes, yes. Assuming we are focusing on a lake that has no monitoring arrangement, no data, and therefore is not a lake calibrated in local simulation, would you move forward in doing an assessment on temperature dynamic, global simulation data only, or would be skeptical already prior to assessment, or this is depending on geographic location? This is a nice question. This is quite complex, actually. I mean, there is that, but definitely, if you do this, it won't be accepted in any journal. So you have to do a validation if you want to publish this. But if it's only for doing a basic check of what is happening on the lake, then if you have nothing, you could use it. We always say that if you are using global simulations and you want to apply it for one point, you should validate it somehow. At least, I don't know, going to have some data in the field. I wouldn't use this data to inform directly what is happening or what would happen in the future without having at least a basic validation. But you are right. I mean, many part of the world, they don't have information, they have anything. So this could be a start for it. But again, at least you should try, at least, for instance, I guess you could have at least methodological information. I mean, you could also check methodological data to see if they make sense or not, because you also have information from climate data in EasyMap, which is the one we are using for doing the lake simulations. At least you have something. So if you have a bias already in the meteorological data, then you should be careful with the lake information, of course, because the lake models are being forced by all this climate data. But as a basic starting, I think it's a good way of doing it if you have nothing, if you don't have information.
Thanks, Danielle.
Counterfactual scenario,
One more
how might
question,
that
yeah.
will it be used in this context? How might that compare, or will it be useful in this context? Yeah, I didn't show counterfactual scenarios. I only showing historical, but counterfactual scenarios is the same historical scenarios, but removing human intervention. I mean, it's removing the CO2 and methane concentrations and all these socioeconomical characteristics that are, let's say, based on human intervention. So in summary, what the counterfactual scenario is doing is just removing this trend, for instance, in temperature and in all the other variables, climatological variables in precipitation and so on, that are based on this human intervention. So if you want to analyze, for instance, what's the name? An attribution study. If you want to implement an attribution study, which is quite common nowadays, so then you have to use counterfactual or P control. They also call it P control scenarios to compare both, no? To compare historical and then the counterfactual or P control scenario. On one screen with transcript, thought they and others seem to have improved some image on the screen in the Zoom window. Following what is going on, even if it is and then there's this text for okay, Amy Williams, Amy or Williams, I don't know. Sorry if I'm pronouncing wrong. Can you write me an email and I can help you, okay? Because this is quite like
I think this is more
specific.
like a general issue about the workshop format, and we can definitely we will keep this in mind and address this later.
Okay, okay, cool.
If there are
Yeah,
any
cool.
more issues about the size of RStudio, then please also use the chat, and we can always like increase the font size during the workshop.
Exactly, yes.
But if you have more technical questions, also Danielle is here for the next hour probably, so we'll have more time if you have any questions later. Maybe we can just continue. Again, feel free to use the Q&A form or the chat if you have more questions. And again, thanks, Danielle. I will just now continue with the second part. So, just see, this is, can you all see? Yeah. So this is now, again, the GitHub blog page. So we have the three parts for this EasyMIP workshop. One about assessing the global and local data, which you have just seen. Then the second part I'm doing is more like a local lake analysis. So in this case, if you go to the GitHub, again, feel free to use, either you can clone it or you can just download everything here as a zip file. In the second folder, part B, you will find a script and some slides as a PDF. And in here, you will also find the data. So in this part, I only want to talk about the local lake side. So assuming you have downloaded data for your favorite lake, in this case for me, this is Lake Mendota in Wisconsin, the US, and you want to see how this lake will be affected by global warming in the next century. And then you can do, as you can see here, like a really beginner study or analysis of this global lake data, or of this global warming impact on Lake Mendota. So for this local lake analysis part, this is Lake Mendota here. It's located in southwest Wisconsin, next to Madison, where Michael is currently sitting, or at least he would be sitting there if he would be at home. So this is Lake Mendota. It is located to a lot of agricultural area and an open city. And we want to see now how Lake Mendota's physical characteristics, temperature will be affected by global warming using the Gotham model, using this climate circulation model and a specific scenario. And so in this case, it would be more like an extreme or more extreme emission scenario. And we want to analyze how this will affect Lake Mendota for the next 100 years. Lake Mendota is typically a demictic lake, and it's about 25 meters deep. So you can expect that Lake Mendota will definitely stratify during the summer and winter season. Okay, so going into the script, and here, please stop me if you think the font size is too small. So again, we are now in part B. So in part B about the local lake analysis. So this
Hey, Robert. Yeah, maybe if you could increase the font size 1 or 2, because even on my machine, it's kind of small.
Okay, how do I increase the font size?
You should be able to go to
really
tools, global options.
Embarrassing. I can zoom in.
And then
does that help?
That works much better.
Okay, thank you, Michael.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is about analyzing local lake output for one lake. So in this small part, I want to show you how to quantify these long-term trends for temperature, and also looking at the long-term trends of the climate change model that underlies the lake model. We want to look at some changes in the lake physics, especially for water column stability. And this is directly related to what Inne talked about the heat budget or the heat uptake of these lakes. And at the end, I want to show you just a really simple example how you could connect the EasyMIP data as input for a water quality model, so for a custom model. Note, this will be a small crash course in physical limnology, and I'm not really sorry for that, but just bear with me. Just to keep in mind, water density is a function of temperature and salinity. In most cases, for either we neglect salinity effects, we just assume everything is fresh water. So we obviously do a stable density profile, and this means density has to increase over depth. If you have any questions, feel free to send me an email also after the workshop. Because I'm currently in Denmark, I have to change my language settings and my time zone just to be sure. Then you have to activate all these scripts again, as Danielle showed. NCDF4 is a really great library to work with the EasyMap output data. Then tidyverse is just a really great processing script for any data analysis. Then our lake analyzer is a really powerful tool for looking at physical lake indices. And then we have 3 more tools for data manipulation and visualizations, Reshape2, Lapidate, and Patchwork. Okay, once you have activated them all, you can just go to the directory of the script. Now we are loading the Lake Mendota data. So this is using the Gotham model again for 100 years with a very extreme climate emission scenario. You can look at the output or the structure of the files. You can see we have the depth included here, different ranges of depth because it's a vertical model. So you have different grid cells. And of course, the most important thing is we have the water temperature here. We can also then, again, look at this. So we have these 3 main attributes. Then we also have the temporal, the time dimension. Here, this is always days since the 1st of January, 1601. So for this, if we want to get the real time, we just have to add this to this initial timestamp. And now we can also look at the time information in this case. If you just print it, you will see now we have the time until 2100. Now, the next line, we just want to load all the temperature data into our studio and also the depth data. And here we will just now correlate any depth point with a temperature point. So we only have the profile over the vertical axis over time. And just to save some memory, we can also close the netcdf file afterwards. Then in this case, we also can now just load the meteorological data. This is the one that was used to run the lake model, and now we can just also take a look at that. You can also look at the real hypsometry of Lake Mendota. So in this case, we just show you how this looks like. So you can look at the meteor file. This has different variables like temperature, precipitation, and radiation. Also, wind speed is here included. And if we look at the hypsography, this is this tells us Lake Mendota, and you have like the area over the depth. So in this case, we have the real hypsometry of Lake Mendota, so the real profile of the area or the volume over the depth dimension. Okay. Now, the first part here, we want to do like a really quick long-term analysis. And for this first, because we want to use Lake Analyzer later, we have to do some data transformation because Lake Analyzer has a very specific format for data, which is not really intuitive, but if you know how it looks like, you can always just recreate it. So we, again, look at our temperature data. We have to, transpose this. Then because we want to work with degrees Celsius, so we have to change from Kelvin to degrees Celsius. And then we also have to change the column names to really get the good, or to really get how Lake Analyzer wants its data to look like. And if we now look at this profile, you can see this is now a data frame with rows and columns, and the columns tell you the depth axis. In this case, this is the temperature at a depth of 0.25 meters up to a depth of 23.75 meters. And then also you have one column with the time information. And now the next one is using our lake analyzer to get temperature of a specific layer. So in this case, we just want to see the temporal dynamics of our surface water temperature. For this, we want to get this temperature layer from our data, our temperature data, for a layer between 0 meters, so at the surface, up to 2 meters below the surface. Then Lake Analyzer also wants to have the depth integrated temperature. So now we get like the average value of this temperature at 0 to 2 meters. We also give it our hypsography information. And now we can just run this. This takes a bit of time because it's about 100 years of data. And just to show a different trends, we can also now add our meteorological data to it. So we can just create a bigger data frame with air temperature and wind speed. So now air temperature also in degrees Celsius and wind speed in meter per second. So if we look at this final data frame, it looks like this. So now we have the time information for the layer temperature of the surface. This is now degrees Celsius for the surface layer, the air temperature, which is also used to run the lake model, and the wind speed. And of course, we can also plot this. So first we plot the surface temperature, then the air temperature, then the wind speed. And this will take a second, hopefully, or nothing comes. Okay, so this is now the air temperature over time. You can see I also added like the blue line as a linear regression for the trend over time. So just using really the daily value. So you can see the surface water temperature is increasing for Lake Mendota under this extreme climate scenario. If you look at the air temperature, you hopefully will also see that the air temperature is of course increasing. It's also increasing over time. And then the same is also interesting to look at for the wind speed, because the wind speed, at least for this climate change projection, seems to be slightly decreasing. But of course, you also can look at the specific long-term or annual trends. So for this, you can now run this small part here. So just looking at our data frame again. Now we look at the annual average changes. We group this by the year, and then we calculate the average annual values just to get like the trend or the gradient of change over the annual axis. So if you do this, and then if you run the summary of this, you can see that, for example, the change of
I think you're muted, Robert.
Oh, I'm really sorry. I don't know why I was muted. When was I muted?
10 seconds from now.
Yeah, not long.
Okay, thanks. Oh, okay. So yeah, we can now just quantify the gradient or the trend change of these variables over time. If we want the summary, so this is like a quick analysis. So to look at the summary of this linear model for air temperature, for annual average values, you can see the average change is about 0.03 degrees per Celsius. For the surface temperature, for the air temperature, it's about 0.06 degrees per year. And if you look at the wind speed, it's a negative change of 0.01 meters per second. Meters per second per year. So you can see definitely the surface temperature is increasing. Also the air temperature is increasing. And here the wind speed is slightly decreasing on average annual change. But you can see there's definitely this strong connection between the air temperature and the surface water temperature. And of course, it's really nice to really explore these long-term time series data using EasyMap and having these future projections for specific lakes. Okay, are there any main questions about this first really rough analysis? I will check the chat, but I don't see anything. Then I will just continue with the second part, which is about lake physics. Now we really want to talk about stratification, which again is really tightly related also to like heat uptake in these lake ecosystems. And for this, we can really look at how climate change in the future will affect the lake stability of Lake Mendota. And one of the good indices or metrics for this is the Schmidt stability. which tells us how much energy is needed to mix the entire water column to a uniform temperature without adding or subtracting the internal amount of energy. So it's more or less how much energy do we need to really mix this current certification or this current certified condition. So the higher this value is, it means the more energy from wind or other sources you need to add to the system to totally mix it. So the higher value means the lake is really strongly stratified. And you can also go back to the slide deck here online. And you can see for the Schmidt number or Schmidt stability, in this case, we have to come back to like the density profile, this blue line over the vertical gradient. You can see this here, so the density is increasing over the vertical gradient, and normally the area over the depth is decreasing. So most lakes have this cone shape, so most of this area is near the surface, then it gets less and less. So if we have data for these two metrics or these two variables, we can just calculate like the total mass of the water column. So this is the integral or the sum of the density and the area over the depth. And then also we can do more specific things like the center of mass. So we can calculate at which point is your center of mass located in the water column. And this is also now using just the density and the area. So you can integrate again the depth over density and the area over the depth, and then just divide this by the mass. And this same ideas are also used for the whole Schmidt stability or Schmidt number in this case, also for mean density. So it's just the mean density of the water column. And if you know these different things, you can calculate the Schmidt stability here, which in the end is the gravitational acceleration over the surface area. This is not really important. It's just how you calculate that. And then you integrate all these different things together. And this tells you how much energy you would need to mix the water column. Just to give you like a theoretical background about this. So in this case, of course, there's a really convenient R function for this available in our lake analyzer, which is just the TS Schmidt stability. And again, this uses our temperature data and our bathymetry data. And you can just run this here and then also plot this afterwards. And you can see that every year during summer, the lake stratifies and you get a high energy output or a high amount of energy you would need to overcome to actually destroy stratification, always during the summer season. And we can also look at different distributions, but definitely you can see that it's a trend. So of course, the lake will have higher water temperatures and lower wind speed, so we can expect stratification to increase in the future. With this next command, you can just look at a distribution, so the density distribution of Schmidt stability values on the annual basis of every decade, so from 2010 until 2100. And definitely you can see here that there is a shift in these distributions. So at the beginning of this century, it seems we have more values close to a low Schmidt stability, and only some values are the really high ones. There's about 600 joules per square meter. But then once we go to the last decades of the century, you will see that there is a shift and we have more extreme high values of water column stability. And we can also just look at 2 decades here, so only 2020 and 2090. You can definitely see that in the future, Lake Mendota will be more strongly stratified. Which of course has a lot of ecological implications, because if we have more stratification, we will also potentially have more or stronger development of anoxia in the deep water layers in the future. And also we can have all of these unwanted biogeochemical reactions to happen, as well as also reduce transport between the surface and the bottom layers. Okay, so this was the first example how to use the EasyMap data together with our lake analyzer to look at all these lake physical matrices. Another really cool thing to look at is the so-called lake number, which is the ratio of the stabilizing forces to the destabilizing forces. And again, I added a slide of some background information to it. Now I totally expect some people to hopefully leave this Zoom call because they are like, oh, Robert, this is super boring, just continue. But I think it's important to know like the background about these things. And for the lake number, again, this includes now the Schmidt stability here in the upper part, So these are the stabilizing forces, so how much energy you would need to actually overcome stratified conditions divided by the mixing forces. And you can see my really simple scheme of a lake. So you have the wind speed here, which is in the lower term. You have the surface area. We have the depth of the epilimnion, the depth of the hypolimnion. So assuming we have two different layers. And we also have the density of the water in the hypolimnion. And then we also add only one new term to this, which is the center of volume, which just tells you where, without any of like a uniform density, where would your mass be located inside the water column. But this lake number is a really good way to easily see in the time series data if the lake is stratifying or if you would expect deep water mixing to happen. And again, there is a really nice function available in our lake analyzer, which is the time series lake number. And this again uses our temperature data, our wind data, and our primitive data. And at the end, we'll give you a number, this ratio of the lake number. And you can say that if it's like close to 1, it's more or less the wind is only sufficient to slightly deflect this density gradient. But you wouldn't expect any deep mixing to happen. If your lake number is above 1, then stratification is strong and stable, and you wouldn't expect any deep mixing to really affect your water column. And if it's below 1, you would see that the stratification is very weak, and you can expect things like strong internal waves affecting the biogeochemistry and also strong deep mixing to happen. So actually some entrainment from the bottom to the top. Okay, so we can run this. And then we can also plot the dynamics of the lake number. And this is really good if you have like some time series data and it's like some metric just to say, oh, the lake is mixing or it's stratifying. And you can see if it's like strongly mixing or more or less strongly stratifying, which is kind of hard to say if the Schmidt stability, because here you can't really quantify if the lake is mixing. And you can see the lake number is definitely increasing with these easy projections. And of course, this is really hard to just have like simple trend from this, but you can, for example, just summarize how many days you have a lake number is above 1 in the future. So again, we group this now by year, and we just look at how many days in that year we have actually where the lake is strongly stratifying. So the lake number is above 1, and you can see there's definitely a trend happening. So in the future, the Lake Mendota will become more strongly stratified, and we won't expect a lot of deep mixing events to happen. And this, of course, makes sense because, as you have seen before, the air temperature was increasing, but the wind speed, so the main agent for mixing, was decreasing. So we can see here the takeaways are the Schmidt stability is increasing, and Lake Mendota will stratify more strongly in the future. And for the lake number, we can also easily see that potentially this means we will have less deep mixing events in the future. Okay, so this was the second part of part B, just to show you how you can calculate these physical lake matrices using the EasyMap data and using our lake analyzer to do some quick analysis for these long-term trends. And now in the final part, if there are like no urgent questions, I want to talk about how you could use in theory the lake EasyMap output to run your own custom water quality model. And this really, I hope, ties in well with what we will talk about on Wednesday about ecological modeling more. Okay. Should we do a quick poll about the speed or the pace? Thanks. Okay, while you are all voting, I will just think about it. I definitely have to slow down. Also, but for this final part of part B only, so stay tuned for part C about how to go beyond lakes. And this final part, the idea is really just to talk about how ideally you can use temperature data from EasyMap to run your own simple custom water quality model. So just to show you this, the idea is you have this EasyMap temperature output, right, for a local lake or for global lakes. And if you know the temperature, you can estimate how much mixing will happen over the water column. And to give you some theory about this, we call this like an eddy diffusivity approach, which is like one of the more straightforward closure schemes for turbulence. And in this case, there is a really simple one by Honzo and Stefan from 1993, which was identified using empirical data from Midwestern lakes. So it should work well for Lake Mendota. And for this, we need to calculate the so-called vertical eddy diffusivity. This is Kc value, the value of K over the depth axis C. And this value tells you how strong is the turbulent diffusion between two cells. And we can get this turbulent diffusivity by using an AK value, which is an empirical constant. So AK just depends on the surface area. And we look at the buoyancy frequency. At the buoyancy frequency, we can calculate from temperature data. So it really is based on the density or the change of density in the water column over the depth. So using the temperature from EasyMap, we can now calculate these diffusivity values. And once we know them, we can run a very simple vertical transport model. So the idea here to run our really simple model for vertical transport is just to have this change of concentration over time, depending on this diffusive term. So this K value from up here, which depends on our temperature from EasyMap. And here we have this diffusive change or the derivative of our concentration over the depth. And we can do some numerics, in this case, a forward time central difference scheme, and we get this solution. If you want to know how to get to this solution, feel free to look at this last slide. This is all based on some Taylor expansion ideas and then central differencing and forward in time. But in the end, we can approximate and discretize this equation, this partial differential equation, into this scheme here. And this is a so-called explicit term. So we have information on this day. So this is, for example, day 1. And we want to know how concentrations over the depth change the next day. We can use information from our previous day to calculate the future. That's the main idea beyond or behind this model. Okay, so the pace check says that it's only too fast for 17%. So I will slow down for the next slide. But please keep in mind that if you have questions, feel free to send me an email. And this is really just an example how to set up like a custom water quality model, just to show you what can be done with the EasyMap data. Okay, so going back to the script. So now we want to run this custom water quality model with the EasyMap data for 1 year of Lake Mendota. So first, you can just filter out 1 year of Lake Mendota data. So if we look at this input data, it's only now going until for 2015. Then this is we can get the time information. So how many time steps do we have? How many depth values do we have? So for example, the time is now 366 days. And for the space, you can see we have 25 values over the depth. Then we can look just at time, so in this case, which just now a character frame. And this next is just to get our data into the right format. So it's not really important to talk about this in detail, but the idea behind this is just that I wanted to have some easier form for data to plot this. So in the end, if you run this, you can see that our temperature data is now melted down. So it's reshaped to a format which is easier to use for ggplot. And this is now the simulated temperature data from Gotham for Lake Mendota for 2015. So you can see here for Lake Mendota, you have here the mixed season or the mixed spring overturn. You have the stratified period in summer, and then you have the fall overturn. And the maximum temperatures go probably up to about like 28 degrees Celsius here. But now we can use this temperature output to calculate these eddy diffusivities, or actually like mixing terms that we need to run our water quality model. We need an empty matrix to store our eddy diffusivity values. And we also say that we only have a minimum buoyancy value. And this is also based on this paper by Stefan and Honzo from 1993. So there's a minimum value, because if you go too low, then the resulting terms don't make sense if we look at the empirical data. But so this next, just a small for loop, just calculates all these diffusivity values based on the theory from this slide here. And this is really just to show an example how you could do this. This is really just getting this AK value, getting the buoyancy frequency. Again, for this, you can also use a really nice script from our lake analyzer. And then you can just calculate these K values for this matrix at every time and every space interval. And once we did this again, I melt this down to have like something which I can easily plot with. So if we look now at the plotted data, now there's a diffusivity over the water column, so over depth and time, the same as the temperature. And you can see here when the lake mixes, so this is like the spring mixing and the fall mixing, we have the uniform diffusivity values. So we have higher diffusivity values, so lots of mixing is happening, so during spring and during fall. And then during summer, we have this zone of really low diffusivities. This will limit our transport, because now during summer we have stratified conditions, and this means now this is a stratification actually in numbers thanks to the added diffusivity value. Okay, so once we have calculated these added diffusivities, now it's time to run our really simple water quality model. So again, we have this partial differential equation. So we have our change of concentration over time, depending on our calculated K value, and then the change of concentration over depth. And we just assume at the surface, so the first grid line up here, there's a constant concentration coming in. So it's always feeding something into the system. And at the bottom, we assume there's exponential decay happening. So in this really simple model, we add stuff constantly at the surface, and we always deplete at the bottom. And in between, there's only diffusion happening. There's like a really simple first approach for water quality model. And we can have a multiplier for our diffusivity value. So just in case maybe this empirical scheme is not giving us the right values or something which we didn't expect, then we can play around with that or calibrate it. Then again, we do an empty matrix for our water quality concentration. And in this case, this could be anything really, anything that gets added by the atmosphere and depleted by some layer close to the sediment. The main thing here, which is different, that we have to go on a finer temporal scale. So normally our EasyMap data in this case was every day. But if we really want to run this with this numerical scheme, we have to get a finer discretization in time. Otherwise, it's not stable enough. So I just interpolate this down to hourly data. So every 24 hours, I want to look at the concentration changes. Okay, so the next thing is we just get our diffusivity values by multiplying our K. So this thing here with our K multiplier, so just times 1 in this case. Then this is our depletion flux, which happens at the last sediment. So next at the bottom here, it's now just 0.1 per second. Then this is our spatial discretization. So in this case, if we print dx, you can see this is like between the first and the second layer, it's 0.75 meters. That's always like 1 meter between the other layers. Our time step is in seconds. So it's now 1 hour, 3,600 seconds. And we say at the first time step, there is a uniform concentration of 10 across the water column. So at the beginning, it's always 10. Okay, so once we ran this, there is now this for loop here. So in this for loop, we just go over time. So we always say at the top, it's always 100. So we always add something to it. And at the last layer, we always deplete something. And then at every time step, we have this for loop over the vertical axis. And here we just solve the equation, which is also available here online in mathematical form. Okay, but once we have done this, we can now again use my very bad script to look at the ggplot, but you can now look at the concentration. So you can see here, there's a really high diffusivity happening here. So at the beginning it was 10, and then it's more or less mixes over the vertical axis. And then because we always add something at the top. We always mix something down here. And at the bottom, we deplete, this concentration. And we can now play around with that, for example. So we can also have a lower diffusivity. So now we just divide our K value by 100. And we can run this again here. And look at that. And you can see if you, reduce our diffusivity. So if you think maybe this was too high at the beginning, you can see now that there is less mixing happening. So it's like a really zone at the bottom, which always has very low concentrations next to 0. But even now, though we always add something at the top, it doesn't reach the bottom because we have these low diffusivity values. You can also see, again, now we can actually see stratified or stratification and its impacts, because you can see here during the stratified season, there's no much transport happening over the vertical axis, and only then during the fall overturn and spring overturn, actually there is something going down below. Of course, you can also like make this a bit lower, and then also have a different depletion happening over the bottom. And you can really play around with the model. So you can run this all again. And you can see now if you have a stronger depletion and a bit higher diffusivity, again, we have this effects of stratified conditions, which has like this constant here. So it's when it's like really stratified, when there's less mixing happening, but once the lake mixes again, we can see also the concentration from the surface gets transported a bit more farther down. And of course, you can also run this really simple model for a whole decade. So now we change the input data for like 1 decade, not only 1 year. And we can run the whole thing again. So now the input data is the year. The time index also known as our 10 years. And if we look at first the temperature data, you can see now we have 10 years of future water temperature profiles. The same also for like the diffusivity. Again, during summer, we have these zones of low diffusivity. And now we can run our diffusion model again, or our water quality model. Maybe also again for our low multiplier for diffusivity. So if we run this and look at the first results, it's a good time to get a short coffee. I don't know why it takes that long. Of course, it's running now 10 years, but hopefully we will see something soon. So you can see again now 10 years. Nothing is really happening that much. This really simple model. Just like one more thing, we can really reduce our specificity again a bit more. Maybe it was too high at the beginning. Maybe this empirical scheme doesn't really work well for Lake Mendota, but if we run this again and look at this concentration, you can see there are some oscillations happening here. And this was just like a small example how to potentially couple a water quality model. Okay, and now with this, you can see now you can, if you reduce the diffusivity a bit more, you can see we have these annual effects happening. With about 10 years, you can see that it takes a long time for the concentration to really get down to deeper water layers if we have this simple assumptions here for this model. So every year it stratifies, it blocks our transport, and it mixes again, it blocks again, and mixes again. So every time our idealized concentration of this tracer gets transported a bit farther down. But thanks to stratification, this is really limiting this vertical transport. So ideally, this makes sense, at least on our scientific principles behind how diffusion works. Okay, that's my part, how to use local lake data. And now I think if there are no urgent questions in the spreadsheet or in the chat, then probably we'll do a short break of about like 10 minutes and then continue with the last part. Is that correct?
Yeah, Anna, is that okay with you?
Yeah, it's fine for me.
Okay. So I guess let's say for 10 minutes, be back at 25 minutes after the hour.
Okay, welcome back to the final part of the EasyMap workshop. Now we went from global lakes to Lego lakes, and now we go beyond lakes.
Thank you. So today I will talk about how we can link the global water sector, which is the hydrology sector, with the global lake sector. So I will start sharing my screen. First, if you go to GitLab and go to the RC, you should find there the code, so which is the script from grid to lakes, also another script for the helper function. I also prepared a PDF file with some information. And also we have the data folder, but the data are not there, so you need to download the data from the Google Drive link or for the Wilddraft link. And also, yeah, because I said that they have some slide information, I will share with you what we will do this afternoon. So far, the dynamical lake model simulation that ICMID has been working under the assumption of constant water level due to the absence of water input to the lakes. And today I will show the methodology that we are applied to calculate the lake inflow from the global water sector output to the global lake according with ICMID 3. For that, we will use output from the hydrological model water gap for the experiment ICMID 3A Oscurs clean historical salt default. And for each grid we have, according with the global lake sector, we have plenty of lakes, but at the end we have one representative lake. And from the water global sector, we have hydrological variables like the pitcher, total runoff, groundwater runoff for each grid, which means we have a single value for each time step for each grid. And then we will use today total runoff and groundwater runoff, and also we will use flow duration information to perform this calculation. And then when we should do this downscale from a grid to a representative lake. How I mentioned, we will use output from the hydrological model water gap for the experiment ICMID 3A, Oscurs clean historical salt default. And the question is what this name means. So this name means that the hydrological model was driven using climate forcing that change over the time according with historical observation. And also they use direct human forcing based in observation, with like observation of population, GDP per capita, land use and irrigation, good have land transformation, synthetic fertilizer, and so on. And yeah, and then here you can see the ICMID repository where all the data are available, and then you can find input data right here. You also can find output data, but also you can find geographical information. And for the geographical information, we will use the flow duration by grid. I don't know how familiar you are with the flow duration, but for each grid, a number is provided. So one, for example, one means that the cell drain toward the east, 2 means that the cell drain toward the southeast, 3 means that the cell drain toward the south, and so on. And 0 means that the grid sink or outlet to the ocean. And the ICMID 3 protocol so describe the experiment, also the input data set, and also the output variable that we can get from the, in this case, for the hydrology model, but also all the output that you can get for the different ICMID models. If we go to the output, so we can find all the variables provided by the hydrological model, as well as the unit and also the resolution. So we are interested in the total runoff and groundwater runoff. And total runoff, how you can see, is available at daily and monthly resolution, but groundwater runoff is only available at monthly resolution. So we will work with modeling monthly outputs. And how are going to downscale from a grid to a representative lakes. Today we will do that for lake with a surface area smaller than a grid area, and for this we will use total runoff and groundwater runoff from ECMIF 3A and the watershed area from Hydrolake database. If you estimate the ratio between the watershed area and the grid area where the lake is located, if this ratio is less than or equal than 1, this means that we will use information for the grid set where the lake is located. However, if this value is bigger than 1, we will use information for the grid set where the lake is located, but also for the grid set for the upstream grid. According with the flow direction, we will decide which one we want to take. And then the lake inflow will be then calculated as the product of the average of the total runoff and the groundwater runoff, or all the selected grid set, multiplied by the watershed area. I have to say that the manuscript is in progress, and also as soon as we process all the calculation, and we will make them available in the ECSIM repository, just in case someone else want to use for planning his simulation. And then I will move then to my R script. So before to start, I will say which file you should have in your data folder. In your data folder, you should be able to have 3 different NextCDF files, one for the total runoff, another one for the groundwater runoff, and another one for the flow direction. You also should have some for file, which is for the shapefile that we will need for the representative lakes, but also you have to GLS file, which is inflow that we get for another hydrological model, and we use that like for the validation of our calculations. So then if I go to my R script, so first I will load all the library that we need. And then I will set up our working space. And then I will, and then I will, load all the functions that we will need. This is in the helper function. And the first thing that we will do is try to load the data. So the first data that we should load is the total runoff. So we use the NC open function to open the file. And then I will get the total runoff, and then I will save them. Because the total runoff is provided in kilogram per meter squared per second, and I want this one in meter per second, I will transform the units that divide by 1000. And also because the total runoff is provided by latitude, by longitude, and also by time. I will load also the longitude, the latitude, and the time. But because I'm most interested in the date, and then I will create a date vector for that. And then I will close the NCDF file. And also I want to load the groundwater runoff, and then I do exactly the same thing. I use the NC open function to load the groundwater runoff. And then because also this is in kilogram per meter squared per second, I should also modify the unit to put that in meter per second, and then I close the NCDF file. In this case, I don't load the latitude, the longitude, and the date, because it's the same one for the total runoff. We also need the flow direction, and then I will load also the flow direction. And because of how I mentioned, don't forget the meaning of the number that the flow direction file provide. I wrote them in the comment, and then the latitude and the longitude for the flow direction file is different for the latitude and the longitude that is provided for the total runoff and the groundwater runoff, so that then I save the longitude and the latitude for the flow direction too. So now we already load all the NetCDF file that we need. The next step is try to load the information relative to the representative lakes. So this shapefile is available in GitLab, so in the ECMI lake sector. So you can go there, and then you can download that if you want to get more information. And then if I load this file, you can see, you can see information related to each single lake. So we can get the lake ID, the lake number, the lake name, in case the lake have a name, because usually all the lake doesn't have a name, the country, so you find the continent and you get more information related with the lake, like the lake area, but also the one that we are interested, we see the watershed area, but also we have information about the latitude and the longitude of the centroid of the polygon that represent our lake. So we will start then with the first study case, which is a big lake in terms of surface area with a small watershed. So the ID of the lake is the 1074, and then I pick the information only for this single lake. And then you can see that the watershed area is around a bit more than 1,000 kilometers square. And then I will get the coordinate of because we have the coordinates of the centroid of the polygon, which represent the lake. We need the coordinate of the grid set where the lake is located. So, and then we will get this coordinate. For that, I use the nearest function that I create, and then they tell me that the grid set that this lake belongs is the one with a longitude of 14.25 and a latitude of 65.75. And then what I will do now is I want to create a grid source of a 0.5 resolution, but also at the same time, I want to create one grid cell around our grid cell where the lake is located. And then I have a function to generate this grid. And now, because you don't know how this grid looks like, I will plot it using ggplot. Yeah, all right. And here, so you can see, first you can see the lake since in blue. Also, you can see a dot, which is the centroid of the lake. And also, you can see here the grid that I create inside for the grid that I create for this lake. And now I want to calculate the ratio, because I mentioned in order to say how I will calculate the inflow, I need to know what is the relationship between the watershed area and the area of the grid. So for that thing, I need to calculate first the grid area or where the lake is located, which is or the area of the grid cell where the centroid of the lake is located, which is that one. And then for that, I will use a function, which is in which I provide the latitude of the grid cell, the resolution of the grid cell, and also the radius of the Earth. And then I calculate then the area, which is a bit more than 1,000 kilometers square. And then I can get also the watershed area from the for the fact that I logged before for this lake, which is quite similar, yeah, to the grid area. And then I calculate the ratio between these two, and then this is close to 1. And then that means that I will only use information for the grid set where the lake is located, but not only. I will use information not only for that one, I will also use information for that one. And then to do that, what I will do now is calculate the intersection between the lake and the grid cell in order to know which grid set I will know. So then I calculate that intersection using the ST intersection function. And then you can see then that the intersection of D gives me these two polygons. And then I will calculate then the pseudo-centroid of each polygon in each grid cell. So then now I have the latitude and the longitude for the polygon who is located in each grid cell. But also, the thing that I need in reality is not the latitude and the longitude for the polygon. I need the latitude and the longitude of the grid cell, which is the coordinate of the center of each grid. And then for that, I will use again the nearest function to calculate them. And then now I have the latitude and the longitude of each crystal where the lake is located. And then now I can plot them. Yeah, you can see now here is the latitude and the longitude of the pseudo-centroid. And then now I will then calculate the flow to the lake. How I mentioned before, this is will be the average of the product of the sun of the total runoff and the groundwater runoff multiplied by the watershed area. So what I am doing here, first, what I am doing is I am taking the total runoff and also I am the groundwater runoff for the crystal that are interested in, which is these two, and then I will multiply them for the watershed area, and then I will run this then, and then now what we're gonna do is calculate the average of these two crystals, and then now I will plot how my time series look like. So now we have the flow to the lake, which is the inflow. But then that's nice, right? So we already have that, but the next question is how accurate these calculations are. So now we are using, because it's not that easy find observation for the inflow for each lake. We are using height outputs. So there is time series for the historical period for Europe available online. So in this case, I will load the file for the lake. Now we calculate everything right now. And because this is the information that we have is a daily basis, but we calculate everything a monthly. What we are doing now is calculate then the monthly average. And then in order to compare them, I need to assign time a monthly average a day. The thing is somehow we can see a lag between the height output and our calculation. And then I will say here, if lag through, I can shift the day for our calculation what month. And then I will do that. And then I will merge our calculated file with the height file. And then now I will plot them. So you can see here, we can see in blue our calculation, and in black we can see the height output, and you can see a very good match. But then I want to also plot simulation versus observation and calculate some metrics. And then I have a function which is called model performance, and I calculate different metrics. And then I add that in the function. And now you can see that we have a normal room in square error around of 0.13, which is really good. And also we have a correlation of 0.18, which is also good, and Nash stickler efficiency of 0.42, which is really good. Any questions so far?
One question in the chat.
Yeah, we have one question in the chat. If this is naturalized flow.
Yeah. You mean our calculation? I guess, right?
I think so.
I think so. Yeah. And now we can continue with a second case. And this case is a small lake with a big watershed. And then, how did before, I will save the information only for our specific lake. And then, so you can see that the watershed area is a bit more than 3,000 kilometers square. And then the surface area of the lake is 1.4 kilometers square, which is small in comparison with the watershed area, with before was much bigger. And then, like before, we get the coordinate of the crystal where the lake is located. So now we have the coordinate of the crystal where the lake is located, and then we will generate a crystal which are grids around our lake. And again, I will plot it. So here you can see, if you can see the lake, which is quite small, And then we can see we have a glycer around, the glycer where the lake is located. And also I will now calculate the area of the glycer where the lake is located. And now this area is 1,400 kilometers squared. And also I have the watershed area, which is a bit more than 3,000 kilometers squared. And then I will calculate the ratio between both of them. And the ratio is a bit more than 2, but I will round this value, I will round down, and they will say 2. That means for our calculation, I only can consider 2 glycer. So why I am doing that? Because I am doing that because our catchment is bigger than our glycer, but in reality, I don't know where the catchment is located. And then I will figure out where the catchment is located according with the flow duration is the next thing that we will do. And then according with this ration, and then I will assume that our catchment site will be somehow allocated in another crystal. So, and then I will take the flow direction for the glycer where the lake is located, but also I will take the flow direction for the glycer around the lake. So, and then you can see here, so we have for the glycer in the first row, we have 1, 1, and 1s. That means that the water drains into the east. So that means that this one drains to that direction, and to that direction. So we are not interested because this glycer don't drain into the glycer where the lake is located. And then if we go to the second row, we have 1s, 1s, and 1s. And then we can see then that this glycer drain into this glycer. So that means that we will consider in our calculation also this glycer. If I go to the third row, so we can see we have for this one we have 2, for this one we have 1, and for this one we have 7. So that means that this glycer will drain to the southeast, this one will be drained to the east, and this one will drain to the north. So that means that we cannot use any of these glycers. So we can summarize that the only glycer that we will use is the one in which the lake is located, but also the one in which the water drains into this glycer, so which is that one. So, and now what we do is then I will then pick these 2 crystals. And then what we do like before, I will take the groundwater runoff and the total runoff for these 2 glycers, and then I will multiply them by the watershed area. And then because I have 2 glycers, I will calculate the average. And then I will plot it, try to see how they look like at daily resolution. It look like nice. And then I will compare them with also height outputs. And then I will log the height output for this specific lake, and then I will calculate the monthly average. And also I will say there is a lag between our calculation at the output from height. And then I will slide through, and then when I will shift the day 1 month. And then I match the 5 from our calculation and from height, and then I will plot it. So you can see the game. In blue, we have our simulation, and in black, we have height calculation. And we can see that how they can capture the seasonality and the timing, which is really good. But sometimes we cannot see a good match between the amount of flow, but we can say that in general, the calculation are pretty good. I will also compare simulation based on height of the calculation, and then I will calculate some performance metrics, and we add that in the plot. And again, so we can see that we have a normal room square error of around 0.1, with a correlation of 0.81, and an associated efficiency of 0.64, which is quite good. what happens if I say that the lag is not true? I say which is false. I will then run the script, which the lag is false, and then I will now do everything again and then compare our observation, our calculation. So you can see, like for the height, we can see, for example, this peak is a bit later than this one, or this one is like a bit later than that one. And then it's for that reason why I shift them. And then if I plot them, observation versus simulation, you can see now, yeah, that the dots are a bit more spread than before. And then if I calculate, then the model performance is a bit worse. But even though this look like pretty nice, I would say. And that's it from my side. If someone has any questions, I'm free to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. I checked the Google form and nothing is in there yet, but as a reminder, feel free to use the Q form link if you have more questions. Also add your email address, and then we can also come back to you. Also feel free to use the chat now if you have questions about how to go beyond lakes and to cover that. And there's our first one. The simulated flow is quite good. Is this a representative lake for general performance?
Yes, I went to the Hive website, and then I look for my representative lake, and then do load the data for this specific representative lake, and then compare them. I would say that the performance is pretty good. I would say I was even surprised at the beginning how good they are. Yeah.
I mean, the NSE looked really amazing. Yeah. The next one, this is so cool. Why do you think the simulations perform worse the higher the flow?
I think so. I mean, at the end, we are considering that our calculation came from total runoff and groundwater runoff, and we don't consider evaporation, or we don't consider extraction of water for consumption or irrigation, any of the things. So yeah, I think, but also for higher flow, I will assume that the higher flow will be for bigger lakes. The code that I showed today is for lake which the surface area is lower than 1 grid area. So, for example, for big lakes like, I don't know, in Sweden, Lake Batten, or the Great Lake in North America, the approach to use is different. It's not exactly the same one that I showed today. We use discharge upstream in order to consider the water coming from the catchment. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Again, if you have more questions, feel free to use the Q&A form or just send an email. Now we went through the workshops. We talked about global lakes, local lakes, and then also coupling the lake sector to the watershed sector. Again, I want to thank all the awesome workshop leaders and speakers today, so Don Pearson, Ina Vanderkeel, Danielle Mercado-Bettin, and Ana Ayala Zamora, for this awesome work. Again, thank you all so much. And I also want to thank all of you for being here for the 2025 Hacking Limnology Day 1. As a reminder, tomorrow we will continue, and tomorrow we will start again at the same time as today, so 2 p.m. UTC, for remote sensing using the SWOT satellite, so surface, water, ocean topography. And now we will just keep some channels open here to Zoom. So if you want to stick around and talk about research ideas or ask more questions to the workshop leaders, feel free to just stay here. Otherwise, we're looking forward to see you all again tomorrow. And again, thank you all for coming, and thanks for the workshop organizers and the workshop leaders today. Anything I forgot to tell you, or no? Thanks, Michael. We will now stop recording, and then we will keep the breakout rooms, or we'll open the breakout room. So feel free to stay. And again, thank you all for coming, and I hope you stick around because we have a really awesome program planned for the whole week.
Yeah, so just to be clear, there will be 3 breakout groups that are opening up. One for questions that folks might have with the workshops. So if the organizers can, or the workshop leaders wouldn't mind sticking around and heading into there. There's one that's geared towards brainstorming new ideas and one geared towards socializing, and you'll be able to move around between each of those breakout groups. So yeah, I guess maybe if folks take 5 minutes, if you want to, take a biology break or grab some coffee. But other than that, I'll open them up and you're welcome to move around. Okay, so we're at the hour. If folks would like to join, I see that there's folks in the questions for the workshop organizers and the socializing breakout group. If you're not familiar with how to get to the breakout groups, there should be an icon in some of the lower remote panels on your Zoom, and breakout groups should be one of those, and you should be able to move around the breakout groups.